All right, joined today with Lauren Lifts. Uh, she's a personal trainer, but she's much more than that. She's more of a life coach than just your typical personal trainer. And we're going to start off by her just kind of sharing with you the basis of her platform and what she does.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I call myself an online health and fitness coach. It's more of like a health and wellness. So everything from workouts to nutrition to mindset, really just helping women become the happiest and healthiest version of themselves, building confidence from the inside out. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much the overview, but it's been I've been full time since January, so it's been about 7 months, 6.5 months. So still building, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know you got like your four pillar things that you kind of found everything on. You want to tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I base everything off of the four foundational steps of health, I like to call them. So that's 8 hours of sleep, 10,000 steps a day, a gallon of water, and proactively controlling your stress. So that's really just the basis around what I try to instill in all the people that come to my page and who work with me one on one. I always compare it to kind of like building a house, right? So if you're trying to build a house, you want it to be on a sturdy foundation. So a lot of people are looking for external changes and health changes and everything, related to that. But if we don't have those four foundations, then kind of got a rocky start. So it's a lot easier to make those things happen when you've got a solid foundation starting with those four.
Yeah. So I know you take like a much different approach than typical personal trainer. What kind of got you on that path of wanting to not just be someone who's just in the gym working with people and wanting to really change people's lives? What was
Yeah,
that?
that's a really good question. I feel like honestly there have been a lot of different things in my life that have led me to that. So I started out, I played basketball my entire life. So I kind of knew a little bit about weight training, but it was really for strength purposes and just for being better and more able to be on the court, right? So I had like strength coaches. I played in college for 2 years too. So had a strength coach there as well, but it wasn't really focused on form, and we didn't really understand why we were doing what we were doing. And at the time, I didn't really care because I just wanted to get better at basketball, so that was fine. Um, and when I decided to quit basketball, I was transferring to a bigger state school, and I decided I was going to join a sorority. So I was like, all right, I need to lose some weight because I need to look differently if I'm going to fit into the better sororities, which I was going for. All to find out that the sorority life wasn't even for me anyway. But when I decided to make the switch, I had ended up reaching out to a girl on Instagram who had recently lost a bunch of weight. And I think she was just like a friend of a friend or something. And she was getting into modeling. And she had sent me the diet that she was following. And I didn't know anything about nutrition. I didn't know anything about weight loss. So I started following her diet. And it was like, God, I could like think about it and remember exacts. But I was probably eating like 1,000 calories a day or something like that. And I lost weight really, really quickly. Um, and I did that a few times. So that was my sophomore year of college, like end of my sophomore year. Through my junior and senior year, I'd probably lost a good like 15, 20 pounds like twice. So I'd lost it, gained it back, and lost it again. And every time I would look in the mirror and I just wanted to lose more. And I would see the exact same body that I was looking at when I was 15 to 20 pounds heavier. So that was a big realization for me that I didn't even realize until probably 2, 3 years ago when I really started diving into online coaching, when I got my own coach. And she started focusing on how I really felt about myself and what I said when I woke up and looked in the mirror, and just like all around self-talk and what I felt I was worthy of, and that kind of changed everything for me. And from then on, I was like, okay, this process, this journey of health isn't just how can I look better in the mirror, but how can I show up differently in my life?
No, that's huge. No, how can you show up differently in your life? I mean, I recently did a kind of intense diet, and at the end of it, I don't know if in the last 7 or 8 years, I like have disliked who I was more, just because I like, not because of the diet, because of what I was doing for the diet, but I like, I lived in Charleston, was doing really good with like working on myself, bettering myself, you know, journaling, all that stuff. And then I had like a really cool idea after graduation to do this diet, and then moved back to home state and like shut off my brain, and then just started living off of this like plan, which was good and fine, but I realized, like, I didn't realize it, honestly. Even after I finished it, I didn't realize it. I didn't know why I was so happy at work, but every other like aspect of my life, I was like, this is boring. I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'd made a friend up here, and I was talking with her, and we were just talking about like where I was at mentally with stuff. And it wasn't until I realized then that it was like, you like moved back here and turned your brain off, and all you cared about was waking up at 5, getting your workouts in, and going, like, work was good because I was like actively thinking at work, and then I was hitting my workout after, and then when I would hang out with people after, I'd just be thinking about the other stuff I had to hit, or the other stuff I had to do. And I like wasn't even able to talk to people anymore. It was so bad. Like, because we would hang out, and I would just be silent all the time because I was just thinking about what I had to do, and I was never like actively like, where are you at today, Jake? What'd you do today, Jake? What'd you accomplish today? You know, none of that. It was just like, you did this, checked off the boxes. You didn't think about it once.
Yeah.
That's scary. It was like,
it's scary.
It was
It's really
like a good,
scary.
it was like a good 3 weeks after that of just working on like, just go back to like who you were like 2.5 months ago. Like, you can keep the gym stuff, you can keep the diet stuff, but just go back to who you were, because it was much better. My friends were joking with me. They're like, I think part of it too was like going back and then just like falling into who I was like 8-9 years ago, which isn't who I am now, hopefully. We hope that we progress in 8 years, at least a little bit. And no, they're like, because there's so many like on here, and you know how there's like the great value version of DiCaprio when they like see people, they're like, this is the great like version of Drake. This is not who Drake most to be.
It's really hard though. I feel like your environment plays a huge role of, how you show up, and a lot of times our memories and, for lack of better words, our traumas that happen when we're in a certain environment, it's really hard to go back to those environments when we're kind of in autopilot. Like you said, you were just kind of going through the motions, checking the boxes. It's like, at that point, we're not living consciously, right? And if we're not living consciously in this space that has previously led to some sort of downfall or a life that, we're not trying to recreate, it's so easy to fall back into those old patterns because we're not the one sitting in the driver's seat. And so through changes, I think it's super important. Like, I talk about this a lot with my clients too, because they have daily and weekly things that they need to check off too. And I say every time, okay, like, yes, it's important that we get things done, but we're not looking at doing them because they check off the boxes. We're doing them because by doing these things, we're turning into that better version of ourselves. Each thing is there for a specific reason, right? So I think for you, especially like going through that dieting phase, or that process that you were going through, is like all of those things were important to get the desired outcome, but like taking the opportunity to zoom out and be like, okay, but each of those things, like, what else are they helping me with, right? Like, what are some of the things that you did during that diet that you were just feeling like you needed to check off the box?
It was really 2 workouts a day, gallon of water, 8 hours of sleep, which I think that was what was the most confusing for me, because I've always been someone, like, I had weeks, like, before I started going to college, I'd have weeks where I'd sleep, like, less than 20 hours in a week, just because I was working so much. And so I was like, why am I worse mentally right now than I've ever been? Well, not ever been. I wouldn't say I was worse than I've ever been. But, like, when you go from, like, being up here, it feels like you drop a lot lower,
Right.
And I was like, I'm more awake. I'm like doing better. All this is better, like where I'm at, but it's just like mentally not there. So sleep, 8 hours of sleep, which I'd hit every day. I think I did the math, and I was at like 83% of the hours of sleep I should have got. But that was from where I was. Even when I was in Charleston, my sleep wasn't that good. So that was something I really wanted to work on.
Improvement.
Yeah, so it was basically 2 workout and then no fast food, no alcohol.
Okay.
which I think just opens up so much of your time to be more present too. I think that is, that's something we talked about before is like